Are you one of the guys that they used to record those audio messages with the customer service? Kati simu yange eweddeko data. Naye nakagula data. Kati data wange agenze. And then you would hear the conversation back and forth with the customer service. Sebo, webale nnyo kubira MTN. I don't remember the
Well, I
exact
don't know
one.
the popular thing was I don't know. Yeah, I was. Yeah, that was. Yeah, that was us. That was us.
Mujevale, Mujevale, Mujevale. My name is Bane Kibuka, and welcome to another episode of the Ugandan Ball Talk Show. Musinguzi, I think it's from, can I guess Western Uganda?
It's from Western Uganda.
Okay, so I'm
Yeah, Western Uganda. Because Musinguzi is like the Muanguzi of Uganda. In Uganda,
okay.
it's the Muanguzi. So in the West, we say Musinguzi. And I'm particularly from Hoima, which is the Bunyoro Kingdom. So I'm a Bunyoro. Yeah.
Actually, I now feel bad because when I was in high school, I had my friend Derek. He's from Hoima, and I think his name was Musinguzi, and I feel bad now that I couldn't guess that. But I guess that was that. So how have you been, my brother?
I've been well. It's nice to finally get to have this conversation with you because it's been waiting for a really long time.
For sure, yeah. I think when I hosted Mochibi, I usually have a question I ask at the end, and they recommend people, and Mochibi recommended you to be on my podcast, and I'm just excited to sit here with you and just learn from your wisdom, and my listeners to get to hear the stories that you do. And I got a privilege to see the work you do on Instagram. I gotta say, I'm amazed, and it's awesome.
Thank you so much. I'm blessed to be able to contribute that way to the community.
Yeah, but we're not gonna dig into that right now. We're gonna start just to get to know you, because personally, I don't know you though much. I wouldn't say, because I was recommended to you, and then we've been talking on Instagram back and forth. But so I know you as Mr. Musinguzi, but I'm sure there's another name somewhere. So what is your name, sir?
So my actual Musinguzi is my name, is my surname. So my full name, my actual name is Brian Musinguzi.
Okay.
And that's like my official name of my national ID on my passport. And Musinguzi means Victor. So most of my friends that follow me on Facebook refer to me as Victor for the easy translation. Mm-hmm. And I've had a very strong attachment to that name because of its meaning, because I've gone through so much, and I believe the victory comes from that confession of the victor on my name, upon me every other time since from my childhood. So I really love the name, and that's why I decided to brand my social media with the name Mr. Musinguzi.
That's a good idea, and just a good thought that you put into that. And one thing I gotta say, like, isn't it cool that Africans, we have these names, our surnames that really hold a good meaning, like our parents. I think that's one thing that I appreciate about the parents. Like back in the day, they had those names that they put a lot of thoughts in their name, like, hey, Musinguzi, I'm going to name my son Musinguzi because I want him to be a victor. I want him to win. So it's cool, like when you hear another person's name, it's like, hey, my name means this, my name means that. And that's always the favorite part, to just hear what the thoughts were behind the name that somebody has. In the beginning, you kind of told us where you're from, Hoima, but I just wanted to just dig into your background. Like you were born in Hoima. How was your life growing up in Hoima and your family members?
Okay, actually, I wasn't born in Hoima. My dad is from Hoima, and my mom is from Chivali, the neighboring districts like in the Western Uganda. However, I was born in Jinja because my mom and dad met in Jinja. You know, back then.
See, I wasn't wrong when I said to Sandaida Kuwara. Yeah.
Yeah, you got that right. So I was born in Jinja because back then Jinja was the most industrial town and there was a lot of employment opportunity. So when my mom got done with school, the first place she went to was in Jinja, and she had a few relatives there. And that's where she met my dad. And so I was born in Jinja. I lived in Jinja, I think, for a few months. And then I went to live with my grandparents in Chibale district. So I lived in Chibale for like, let me say, a year or so. And because I used to stay with my aunties and my grandparents, and my auntie was a teacher in one of the schools there. So she would, at some point, everyone would go to work, and I was the only one who was meant to stay at home, yet I was so young. So what I used to do is I used to follow my auntie to school and just join her class and study, and just as the kids were learning. So at the end of the term, they were like, okay, you've been attending class, why don't you do exams? So I did the exams, and I was like among the top 3 in the class, and they were like, oh, then you're ready for school. So that was a little bit of my childhood and how I got into school at an early age. Yeah.
Do you have any other siblings?
Yes, I do have. I share. I like. My mom and dad have both. I have children. I have siblings. I share from my mom's side and my dad's side. So I have 3 brothers from my dad's side, and I'm the 4th on my dad's side, and I'm the second last born on my dad's side. And then my mom also have step brothers and sisters from my mom's side. So in total, we're like 6 children.
Oh, wow.
And those are the people that I call brother and sister.
That's amazing. I always loved it when a family, when we grew up like in a big family. I didn't grow up in a big family. I only have one brother, but like, yeah, we're just 2 boys, and it's my elder brother. He's just 2 years older than me. But every time we get to meet with my cousins and like other people, other family members, it's always fun. Like I could imagine how it was like to grow up in a big family.
Yeah, that was fun. Now, that reminds me of the time when I used to stay with my grandparents. Like during the festive season, I could have like a family of 30 people, and it was
wow.
And it was amazing. It's like some of the best memories I've had since growing up.
Yeah, that's one thing I wouldn't say hate, but I would say I say I hate about life, because when we grow up and life changes for us. Everybody moves, goes to different places. Like now, my family is all like sparse, so we all in different places. But that's one thing I treasure back in the day. Like I wish I can have that back, and because right now I miss that. Like I want to have my big family back around me, but that's pretty cool that you had a big family, and you explained a little bit about how you went to school. So you studied your school. Where did you go to primary and high school, and if you ever went to university?
So primary, I told you I already shared my first primary experience. So when they saw my report card, and they were like, "Oh, this guy is brilliant to be able to excel at this level, yet he hasn't been attending fully as a student." So my mom brought me back from my grandparents' home and brought me to Kampala. So if you know the areas of Bugolobi, there used to be there's a school called Chiswa. Then there was Mbuya. There's a barracks, an army barracks there.
Yeah.
So my mom took me to the army's children in Buya, because there was a barracks and there was a school for army children. So they took me there, and that's where I started my primary from P1 up to around P4. So
let me pause you there for a second. So when we were growing up, they told us, they would to scare us, my parents, we'll take you to an army school. We'll take you to an army school. Now, is it true that in the army school, they beat you like army people? Like, is it that scary?
Actually, I didn't mention that part because I think at some point I was getting a little bit stubborn. So my mom was like, "We'll take you," because there are 2 schools there. There was Chiswa Primary School, and then there was Mbuya. So they were like, "We won't take you to Chiswa. We'll take you to Mbuya because we need you to be in line and get and know those guys will put in order." But it actually wasn't the case because the school was separate from the barracks. Only that we had children from children that are from the families of the soldiers. So I think that would only apply if your parent was a soldier and they called them to discipline you, then you'd get that version of the discipline. But then for the rest of us, we lived normal lives. We just had the experience of being able to go to the barracks, seeing bullets, and that those training grounds where we used to go and play. Sometimes I one day almost broke my arm playing in the we used to call them mandach, but the soldiers training there. So yeah, we didn't get the army version of the discipline, but there was always that thought of, okay, what if they bring that version in? So it helped us keep in order.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were continuing with your high school?
Yeah, so when we lived in Bugolobi Flats, I think a bit of my childhood, I lived in Bugolobi Flats. And back then, it was like a very good community. And after I reached my P4, we moved to a different neighborhood that was in further towards Luzira, and that is Chitintali, Mutungo. And then I moved to a new school called St. James Bina Primary School. If you know that earlier on we used to have Catholic churches, and there's a church in the school.
Yeah.
So in around the areas of Mutungo Bina, there's a church, a Catholic church, and there's a school affiliated to the church. So that's where I continued from my primary 5 all the way until I finished my P7.
Okay.
And then from there I went to City High secondary school. If most people know Kololo, but then City High was like the other school next to Kololo in that area. It was I was told it was earlier like common for Indian students going there, but then by the time I reached there, I had already 2 brothers in the same school, and I didn't find so many Indians, and it was a bit more welcoming for me knowing that I have 2 brothers who are in the school. They kind of briefed me of how the things were working out there. So I was in City High from senior 1 up to senior 4. And then because I disconnected with my local language or my mother tongue, one of my elder brothers told me, you can't speak your mother tongue, you can't express yourself well in your mother tongue. Why don't we take you back to a school where you learn your mother tongue?
So what was the mother tongue for you? So because if your dad is from Hoima, which is Banyoro, and you grew up in Jinja, which is Lusoga. So what was the mother tongue for you?
My mother tongue is still Lunyoro, because in Jinja, I left Jinja before I could even speak.
Okay.
So because I was born in Jinja, then moved to Chibale. So I'd started learning Lunyoro from my grandparents. And then when I started school, I moved back to Kampala. And when I reached senior 4, my brother is like, you can't grow up and not know your language. You can't grow up and you can't express yourself in Lunyoro. How will you teach your children how to speak or the culture? So I was taken back to Hoima. That was the first time I had a living experience in Hoima, which is the district where my dad comes from. So I went and lived in Hoima for 2 years, where I did my A-levels. And I did have my senior 5. I was in day school because I used to rent in the town and go to school. But then the senior 6, I was like, okay, if I'm going to be serious with my books in this final year and not waste the opportunity, I need to get more committed and join the boarding school. So I was in Duhaga SS. It's called Duhaga SS. It's a very popular school back there. And it was a good experience for me. My first boarding experience, it was nice. Though when I went there, I already had friends in the boarding section. So it was an easy transition for me to join the boarding class. And then I was doing a science combination. So it gave me a lot of ease, being able to access the resources and the time.
So empako yao ni?
Empako yanga tenyi. Kande yao.
Akiki.
Oh, takiki.
That's awesome. So that's amazing. So you did science when you were in high school. So then, did you ever go to university though?
Yeah, from Duhaga, where I did my secondary school, I come back to Kampala, and then I developed interest in technology. One of my elder brothers kept telling me, man, there's this thing, if you interacted with computers, because even at high school, I spent a lot of my time in the computer lab. We only thing that we had was access to like Yahoo and Google and YouTube, and YouTube had just opened, and then we used to watch videos there. So when in my vacation, my brother kept telling me about IT. You need to think about doing a course in IT, and then he gives me examples of other guys who are already working that have done that course and are excelling. So I didn't have the money to go to the university direct, because I didn't get the points that could take me on government sponsorship. But then there was a technology institute in Nakawa called UICT. It's next to MOBS. So I joined that, and I do a bachelor in computer science, rather a diploma in computer science. And I did that for 2 years. So after that, I left the institute feeling like, yeah, I have the skills that can help me create a job rather than look for a job. So I tried that out for like a year, and that was in Kumba University, because university communities, you always had that need for either typing skills, or people had they needed music, they needed to watch movies, they needed to have software installed on their laptops, and they used to have issues with their computers. So my brother, one of my other brothers, helped me set up a workshop that side, and I worked there for like, let me say, 9 months.
Yeah.
But the biggest problem I got there was electricity, like with load shedding. We used to call it load shedding back then. But then power would go off every now and then, and that meant I couldn't do business. I couldn't operate. So one of my guys I'd started with at UICT had straight away joined to work with the MTN, and I bought a modem, and I used to stay on the internet just to get updates of what's new, what's happening out there. Because the students always loved me for that, because whenever there was a new song that was on TV, I could easily download it and give it to them on their phone. So I used to stay on social media, on Facebook. So one time my friend tells me, hey, what's up? There's a job opening here at MTN. Would you be interested? I was like, oh yeah, because I was tired of not working because power is off. So I was like, let me go and get a job where I can consistently work and still earn money irrespective of whether power is on or off. So I applied for a job with MTN. Back then, the entry level was the call center, call center executives or advisors, because when you call the helpline and you have issues with your phone, there are those guys that are very polite that talk to you. So that is the job that was my entry job in MTN as a customer service agent.
Are you one of the guys that they used to record those audio messages with the customer service? Kacha simu yange eweddeko data. Naye akagula data. Kati data wange against it. And then you would hear the conversation back and forth with the customer service. Sebo, webale nnyo kubira MTN. I don't remember the exact one.
The popular thing was yeah, I was. Yeah, that was us. That was us.
That's so funny. But to go back a little bit in your story, when I mentioned you did sciences, what combination did you do when you did sciences in senior 6?
I did PCB art. Yeah,
PCB art. So what was your goal before all this? When you shared your story right after you did, so what was the goal when you started the science combination? What was on your mind? What did you want to do after senior 6?
Yeah, when I was growing up, the only jobs that we knew were doctor, teacher, policeman, or engineer. And then would look at, when you grow up from a setting where you feel like I need to create a better life for myself, you'd always look at what job will pay me more. And back then, I don't think I can say that I'd always wanted to be a specific in a specific profession. Though I admired doctors, I admired the respect everyone accorded to doctors. So when I was told when you do PCB, you are open to all options. You can either become a doctor, an engineer, or any other profession that you want to do. I was like, okay, let me just do PCB. And when I reach that side of decision making, I'll be able to easily make a decision to cross to any profession. So that was the reason why I ended up doing PCB. But then after my vacation, things had changed. My interest, and that's how I ended up in IT.
You touched on something that I actually want to just remember right now that I want to pass across to all the listeners and everybody tuning in, watching this podcast on YouTube. I shared something on my podcast page on Instagram. It was a story to my Ugandan brothers and sisters. You don't have to be a nurse, an engineer to be considered successful. You can be a musician, you can be a DJ, you can be a dancer, you can be creative, a barber, a stylist, actor, model, designer, creative designing, and traveler. You can be whatever you want to be. Look around and you're surrounded by people who are talented in Uganda that are in these different professions and are successful. I'll cut it there, but it was basically just reminding people that, and you just made it here and that's what made me remember, because we're now digging into what you do right now, that is something successful. Like, people don't even think about that. Like you mentioned, when we grew up, they were telling us you either be a doctor, a nurse, like even the songs we sang in school saying "Jagala kube the doctor," or everything. Like, but like, I mean, I'm thankful that I was able to get my dream job that I always wanted when I was younger, and that's to be an airplane mechanic and work on airplanes. And that's the whole reason I started this podcast, because most of my friends would see me post pictures on airplanes, working on airplanes, flying airplanes, and they'll be like, "Hey, that's not the only way." I thank God. I bless God for whatever He has brought in my life. I wanted it, but I want to use this platform to remind the kids, like, even if it didn't go the way you wanted to, that's not the only option. Like, there's a lot of other ways you can still be successful, even though you didn't get these dream jobs like we dreamt about. And I'm glad that you shared about that. So now you finished your degree and you had a job on MTN.
That was my diploma. That was my diploma.
So you got your diploma and you started a job in MTN. How did you then transition from MTN to now being a content creator and a traveler?
So when I joined MTN, the first thing I did was get back to school. So I went to Cavendish University. It was like a new university and had a very flexible program, and would study.
What year was that? What year did you go to Cavendish University?
That was a long time ago.
Like what year?
That was 2013. 2013.
So the reason why I asked you is I finished high school in 2012 in Uganda, and I applied to Cavendish University in 2013 because I wanted to do. I think they were giving me developmental. Some course, like at that point, because I told you I wanted to work with airplanes, but when I finished Form 6, I didn't have that opportunity to do it. So I was just going to go to the university and just do anything. I think it was developmental, any course, because I mean, you have to go to university to be successful. That's what we thought. And that's the year that I went to Cavendish University. I applied and I was actually admitted. But then I started processing to go to the US, and I wasn't able to start school there. But I just wanted to find out the year, because we could have been in the same school.
We met in the corridors when we were applying, because that was the same year. 2013 is when I applied to Cavendish. So, and I think September intake is when I started studying at Cavendish. I was an evening student because of my work, because I'd already started working. So I did my bachelor's at Cavendish and finished it. And thank God I had a background in IT, so it was easy for me because I did the same course. I did a bachelor in IT at Cavendish. So the knowledge that I had from my diploma kind of helped me ease the whole process. Even if I didn't attend all the classes, at least I was familiar with everything that was being taught there. Now, back then, back to how I transitioned into a content creator. Now, back then, the salary that we were getting was very little. And the needs were increasing. I have to pay my school fees, I have to pay my rent, I have to pay transport, food, you have to send some money back home. So I sit down one time and I'm like, okay, I'm in the customer service experience department, and I'm not using a lot. I'm using like a small percentage of my IT to execute the work that I'm doing. Of course, I was excellent at the work I was doing because of the experience and exposure I had to computers. But then people used to notice that, oh, Brian is good at this, Brian is good at this. So one of my teammates tells me, Brian, you're good at social media. I see the posts that you're putting on social media. Why don't you help me manage my social media page? Because she was a music artist. So I was like, okay, that's cool. I can do that. I can create posts for you. I can put captions. I can automate stuff for you. And then I start reading about how to be efficient at doing that work that she gave me. Because after like a month, her sister sees the work on her page and she's like, who is doing that for you? Because I think they're doing a great job. Could they do that for my NGO? Because she had an NGO. So I get now, those are 2 gigs. They start paying me. And then after like another month, the sister says, okay, why don't you manage my other business? So I had like 3 pages I was managing on Facebook, and I was getting a little bit of money. So I started doing research on how do I get better? How do I provide a better service to these guys? And that's how I landed on an article that talks about earning from creating content. And that the specific article was talking about YouTube. So I was like, okay, if there's a possibility that I could earn from publishing on YouTube, let me do an experiment. So I start an experiment. I open up a YouTube channel and start dropping random stuff there. And like 3 months into the whole process, I get verified by AdSense. I start receiving paychecks. And I remember the first time I got around $800. I'd never earned that money. Never held that money in my never held that money at a go. And I was like, okay, this is amazing. So I started telling these people that I was working with that you guys, you need to like raise my pay because I'm providing, I'm providing value. But the reason was that I'd gotten an option of getting more money, yet I was building something that I felt like was mine. But it wasn't really something that I was really creating. I was just getting random videos from places on YouTube, on Facebook, and dropping them on YouTube for the experiment. So like a year or 2 into that, I started losing connection with the content I was putting there, because it wasn't mine, it wasn't original content. And YouTube has had a number of changes it applied onto their policies on the content that you upload there. So at work, I used to be the guy that always holds the camera whenever we're having a birthday party celebration, whenever we're going to go to, like I say, people would look at you and be like, okay, Brian, I think you'd do better at this. You can take better photos. You can take a good recording of the video. So whenever we used to go out for team building activities, I used to be the guy behind the camera. So I was like, okay, why don't I start creating videos that are my own, and then I start publishing them on YouTube, since I already tested and the experiment worked out that you can actually get money from publishing. So that's how I started. Because videography back then was something that was hard to access. But then working with MTN, working with an internet service provider, I had unlimited access to the internet. So I start watching YouTube videos.
I almost asked you because when I was in Uganda, but YouTube, like YouTube had a very huge bandwidth it, so like you could run out of your data just watching YouTube. But like I almost asked you, how were you able to afford that? But that explains it.
Yeah, kind of, yeah. So but I didn't back then, like you say, it was very hard for you to watch. So because I was working with an internet service provider, I started watching YouTube videos. Like after work, I would stay for like 3 hours watching and learning stuff. And then I started to follow these guys who are doing amazing things. So that is how I got introduced to content creation. I was like, okay, if these guys can do it, I think I can also do it. So that's how I started now. Using, every time we used to go for team building activities, I would create a video of myself talking about the place that I've gone to, and then publish it on YouTube. And it helped me as an evaluation platform for me to see how can I get better at creating videos. And over time, I can say it's been a journey from zero where I didn't know
Yeah.
how to create a video. And today people look at my work and they think probably I went to school to do that, but it's been a result of me watching YouTube content. And I owe that to the access I had to the internet back then with my employer.
And that's the main reason I brought you to the podcast. Obviously, I just didn't want you to come and start talking about content creating without people knowing your background, a little bit of your background, your journey, how you
Yeah.
got where you are. Because that's the whole point I do the podcast is I want somebody in Uganda to listen to your story and it's like, hey, this guy grew up in Bugobi Flux and he was doing this and
Yeah.
this, and now he's a content creator. So I want them to relate, to track your journey where you, I mean, we can't fully track your journey in 40 minutes or 20 minutes, but at least they
Yeah.
get a glimpse of that. And I gotta say, before even I forget, like what's the name of your YouTube channel? Because I want my listeners to just go out and check out your work. And also on Instagram. He uses Mr. Musinguzi, and I'll let you just share your social media handles and the username. I'll also add those in my description of this video in case they missed
Oh,
them.
thank you. So my Facebook, rather Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all of them is Mr. Musinguzi. So just search for Mr. Musinguzi, and then you'll be able to find me. Right now, I'm grateful that when you search, the algorithm kind of brings me up because I've
Mhm.
done several uploads. So if you go to YouTube and search for Mr. Musinguzi, you'll definitely be able to find me. Same applies on Instagram and Facebook.
And I'm not just gonna leave it at that because I just want to go in depth of the things you do. Like for people who don't know, who are listening to this right now and don't know the work you do, it's such an amazing work. I've got time to uh, look at some of your work. Actually, when I hosted my friend Mochibi, when he
Yeah.
recommended, hey, you should host this guy. He does really good work. He tagged me on one of your posts and just saw that. But I wanted to talk about something a poster you made a while back about the part of Maction Falls. But you say there's so much our country has to offer when it comes to tourism. We can make use of technology and platform like social media skills, like cinematography, photography, to make useful noise about the beauty that our country is. And you just basically talked about that when you were before even already when you were talking about why you got into photography. What can you tell people who are listening about Uganda? You've traveled almost everywhere in Uganda, and we're going to talk about some of your experiences at different places that I've seen you take videos of that. But what would you tell to the listeners about the experience of experience in Uganda?
Wow, that's a very huge and complex question. I don't think I could have the best words to express how amazing Uganda is, because even I, as a travel, the places I reach, and I'm wowed by what I'm seeing. However, what I can say is Uganda is one of the most beautiful places that you can visit. Straight from the people, the landscape, the weather, and the entire ecosystem in Uganda is a whole different vibe. So as a person who has lived in Uganda, mostly I'd lived in the central part of Uganda, going out and exploring other parts of the country helped me appreciate it more. And I can't tell you that I've gotten enough of all that beauty, because every time I move out, every time I go to different places, every time I meet new people, I still get a new experience from each part of the country that I go to. So if you've not traveled to Uganda, or if you're Ugandan and you're living in the diaspora and you've not explored any part of Uganda, when you come back, please just take the time and get to know a little bit more. You won't remain the same. You
Mm-hmm.
won't remain the same, because me, it's changed me, and I'm a very good testimony. Even me being able to speak to you right now is
Yeah,
because of some of
your
the
content.
experiences I've had across the country. Yeah.
That is true. And I just pulled up your Instagram right here. And if you go check Mr. Musinguzi, he has a link to his YouTube channel on his Instagram page. But also, when I was scrolling through your page the other day, I landed on the White House. Like it literally looked like the White House picture. Oh, you
Yeah.
said you looked at it all the time when you passed by Entebbe. Did you ever find out who it belongs to and why it's there?
Yeah, actually, it's a replica of the White House, but then
Mhm.
it's belongs to one of the rich men in the country. Because if you know a gentleman called Ham, he's
Yeah, I know him.
yeah, he's a prominent businessman, and he has a real estate project going on in that area.
Mhm.
And that is like the office of his office, and then the office of the entire project that's going on there. It's a very beautiful, beautiful space. Yeah.
That is good. That is amazing. Because when I looked at it, I was like, yeah, that definitely looks like a White House, like the White House in the
Yeah.
US. And but also the other video I just pulled up right now, well, the one they tagged me in, um, aboard MV Kazinga, one of the best marine experience in Queen Elizabeth National Game Park along the
Yeah.
Kazinga Channel. That's the one place I want to go to. Like I watched your video when you walk on the, was it a boat or the ferry? The one when you're holding your
Yeah, yeah, on
camera.
the ferry. Yeah, 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 on
Yeah,
the
I was on the
ferry. Yeah.
ferry. That was really dope. And
Actually, it was. I think it's a boat. It's a boat. Yeah,
okay,
the white. It's a boat. Yeah, it's
okay.
MV Kazinga.
Yeah, so that's one of the places I've not been to, like Queen Elizabeth National Game Park. But every time I come back to Uganda, I try to at least visit a place that I've not been to. Like I started with the North. That's where I go most times. Like I take my family to go there, and I would urge all the people, the diaspora, people in the diaspora that always visit to Uganda, to go check those places out. And last time I went to the Maction Falls and took my family there. I went to the hot springs. We visited those, but yeah, it's always amazing. And lastly, oh yeah, what are some of your hobbies? I want to know some of your hobbies besides doing these videos and stuff. What are the hobbies that you do for fun?
What do I do for fun? Lately, I just create content for fun and
Okay.
travel. Back then I used to play the keyboard. I used to
Mm-hmm.
play the keyboard in church, and music was a big part of my upbringing because we used to have a lot of music around the home. So I used to play the
Yeah.
keyboard. So I would say besides that, I love listening to music, playing music if I got the opportunity to do that. Though it's been a while since I played. And yeah, besides that, I was initially an introvert, so I'm learning a lot of people
Yeah.
skills. I'm putting that into practice. So most of my childhood friends meet me and they're like, "Are you the guy doing this?" Or this is a different person. So I'm kind of just discovering a whole new personality that has been hidden within me.
Yeah. So I don't use the Zoom that I use is only limited to 40 minutes, and I got the
Yeah.
notice that it's going to be off in like a minute. But once it
Yeah.
gets off, you can log back in on the same link. We'll just wrap up and finish it up. But well, I was going to ask you. Oh yeah, the reason why I asked you your hobbies because you posted. I don't know if you were just doing a video for it, but like the game night thing that you did, were you there for the games or were you there to record? I think I saw
Oh,
a video of
yeah,
you
yeah.
shooting the game night. Like, were you there for the games? Because I saw people playing cards and all that. That's why I asked for the hobbies to see if you were there for the games or the shoot.
I was actually invited to that event. It was happening at Alliance Francaise, which is like the office for Bonjour Kampala. It's affiliated to the French embassy. So one of
Mhm.
my friends who was organizing the event invited me there, and I'd gone to show my work because it was kind of a meet of people playing games, but I also went to show my work and my videos. And I just got the opportunity to record the videos while I was there. That's
All
when I
right.
put up.
I'm happy to see this kind of thing. I'm happy to see people succeed even through the things we never thought about when we were growing up. Like through, like when I was a child, you couldn't tell me you'll make a lot of money just making videos. Like how? You only make a lot of money if you're a doctor, if you're a
Yeah, an
president.
engineer,
Yeah,
an
like that's
accountant. Yeah.
and that's why I like to host people like you. And I'm so blessed and honored to have you on my podcast to just share your work and how you got to this point. Through this life, through you growing up and where you are, what has been your life lesson that you've learned in life so far?
The biggest life lesson is, I should say, I'm a very, I'm a born again Christian,
I
and I
mean,
should say,
I'm a born
yeah. I
Christian.
mean, so I can't say I've had a better lesson than trusting in God, because at some point everything else will seem like it's failing, and the only hope that we'll have is in God, and we can always keep renewing our faith and hope, and through believing and trusting in God and adhering to what His promises are telling us in the Bible. So I would say my biggest lesson has been trusting in God in every circumstance. But then even through trusting God, you know that not giving up is not an option. And sometimes where we live in Uganda, you don't have an option of giving up. Like when something I hadn't shared with you is that I worked with MTN for like 7, 8 years. Then I quit my job to become a full-time videographer. And it's like when you start making certain decisions, you don't have an option of going back. Like the decisions you make, and you're like, no, I'm not going to go back. So if you are moving forward, be determined to move forward, and irrespective of what comes your way, if you know that I've had my conversations with God and this is the direction that I believe I'm supposed to be taking, just stay focused, keep pushing. We used to have an abbreviation of pray until something happens back then.
Push.
So
Yeah.
you push forward, work towards your goal, and you can achieve anything. Because me, I never thought I would be able to create videos and earn a living and pay my bills and support my family. But seeing this come to pass, I believe anyone out there who has a dream and they believe they can work in that direction and achieve whatever they want to achieve, I'll just encourage you to do that. Trust in God and push towards your dream.
Nothing can beat that. And I always touches my heart when somebody refers back to God and somebody just gives the glory back to God. It's like not your power, not anything, but it's always been God, and just letting people trust Him. Like, just so that's all I'm gonna tell you. Just trust you, and it doesn't mean it's gonna be easy. It's gonna be hard.
Yeah.
But as long as you got your trust in Him, everything will play out. So I'm glad that you shared that. The other thing is, what gets you excited about life?
Life. So many things, so many things. But coming from an introvert background, I don't know where that's an actual. I think I'm not very extreme in all sides, but then when I do something that it impacts someone positively, that really brings me a lot of joy. That brings me a lot of joy. Like I could say from my videos, I've had people who had left Uganda like 20 years ago. And when I get a message, there's a time I have so many Indian friends that left back then. So when they see my videos and they come and they're like, oh, you passed that place. My great grandfather had a shop in that location. That excites me so much. It excites me like if the one thing I've done has impacted or brought or brightened someone else's life, that really brings a lot of value to me, and it excites me a lot here.
I like that because that's a kind of a selfless life, like living a selfless life. Like it's not all about you, but like when you say something that excites somebody else and brings joy to you. So like it's not about you, it's about somebody else. So that's definitely like $1 million answer right there. And then my final question, this is like one of my signature questions that I usually ask people. Who would you like to see on my podcast next? And you're gonna help me find a person to be hosted on my podcast to share about their stories or what they do or anything. My podcast is open to all sorts of conversations as long as they impact somebody's life.
Okay. Yeah, I think the person that comes to my mind, there's a lady called Nabs Ara.
Okay.
I'm not sure whether you've come across her, but she's also a content creator. And one thing that is powerful about her story is that straight from school, she decided not to look for a job, but go become a content creator. And I met her through content creation, and I've been a friend with, we've been friends for a while. So she has a very powerful story, and she'll share different perspective from a female perspective of what it's like being a content creator. And her journey, I believe, will be able to reach and touch so many, because she's been able to achieve so much just because she made up her mind to be a content creator, despite the challenges in the industry.
All right. Yeah. You and I should get together and see how you can connect me to her, and we can have her on the podcast sometime soon. But once again, Mr. Musinguzi, I'm so honored and happy to have you on my podcast. It's a blessing, and I can't wait for my listeners to hear your story.
Thank you too. Thank you too so much for hosting me. Thanks to John. John is a friend of one of my workmates, but then we connected through social media, and he's an amazing guy. And I also appreciate you for this platform, because seeing what you're doing and your story, and now giving the world a perspective of what it's like coming from Uganda, and being able to share all these stories is something that is impactful. These are stories that will inspire people for generations. And I should say I'm very grateful that I've had an opportunity to contribute to this.
Thank you, sir. How do you say bye in Lunyoro?
Lunyoro. Mm-hmm. It's bye.
Oh, it's bye? Okay. Right. How about thank you?
Yeah, wevale muno.
Wevale muno.
Yeah, wevale muno.
Right.
Yeah. So,
all right.
Thank you so much, and greetings to everyone that is listening to the podcast and who is going to be watching the YouTube videos.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Hey there, my name is Bwana Kibuka, the host of the Ugandan Boy Talk Show. Thanks for listening and watching my podcast. Tune in every Saturday at 11 a.m. for a new episode on the podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, follow, share, and we appreciate it. If you can, leave a feedback on our podcast, please. Thank you very much.